Hey everybody, today we are starting a brand new campaign. Icewind Dale's Rime of the Frostmaiden. So let's dig in. We just wrapped up the last campaign we played, Call of the Netherdeep. If you're interested in seeing what happened there, I'll provide links for the playlists down below for both the DM prep and the campaign diary for those two. Had a lot of fun there. Now we're ready to dive into our next campaign, and that is going to be Icewind Dale Rime of the Frostmaiden. So I have heard mixed reviews from this. Some people like it and some people don't. The common consensus seems to be that you have to do a lot of things to make it work. I'm going to kind of lean into that a little bit, knowing that I'm going to have to homebrew some stuff and we're going to have to lean into the players' backstories a little bit for some plot hooks, which I'm kind of excited about, to be honest. I feel like this will be a good transition from the Netherdeep, where it was pretty linear for the most part, to something that's more open-ended, like a homebrew type campaign. So it's kind of somewhere in the middle. We've got some material to use for sure, but we will also be doing some homebrew, which I think should be a lot of fun. So that's the mindset I've got going into this. We're just going to dive straight into our session 0 here. So this is my Notion notebook. I have taken a copy from Sly Flourish's campaign template, and I have tweaked a few things so that they are more user-friendly for me. So I'll provide a link for this in the description below, as well as a link to Sly Flourish's YouTube channel, so you can go check those out as well. He goes through kind of the same thing. He goes through 8 steps of session prep from his book, The Return of the Lazy Dungeon Master, if you're interested in that. So link for that will be in the description below. Real quick, we'll go over kind of the layout of the Notion notebook that I've got here. Up top, we've got our session notes and a little place to store our old session notes. And then we've got our database, which contains a bunch of the information, so villains, items, NPCs. Here you can see I've completed the NPCs for all of Chapter 1, and I have also created these little NPC cards for each of the named NPCs in the book. So here's Alisar Solmander. This is something I'm going to plan to show to my players. If it was digital, I just show them digitally, but because we're in person, I have printed a bunch of these, and I'm going to show them to my players as they're conversing with them. So here is Sheriff Markham Southwell, Quinn Trollbane. My hope is that it'll help my players remember the NPCs. I also have little cards for the magic items that I've gone through that the players can find, and we'll be adding those for custom magic items that we add for our players as well. I'll provide links for all of this in the description below for both the NPC cards and item cards. One benefit of being a patron is you get access to our Discord server for one, but you also get access to all of the tools that I have provided for any of my campaigns so far. That includes any notes that I print out, DM screen notes, any of these types of things, these digital assets that I have created. This is just Mid-Journey, so this isn't actually me, but Mid-Journey or the official art, these NPC cards, item cards, any of the magic items that I did for the Netherdeep. If you want an easy place to access all of that where it's nice and organized by campaign, and you don't have to go digging through a bunch of videos or posts on Reddit or whatever, that's one of the benefits of being a patron. You get access to all of that. It's just a Google Drive, easy access. So if you're interested in that, I'll provide a link for that in the description below as well. But everything is free. You can access it all. It's just easier to find in one place if you're a patron. That is the database. We'll go back. Here I've got resources. This is a campaign outline. As I go through and prep for a campaign, I typically will read through the entire book and I outline a bunch of different things. So we've got different acts as I see the book, where the leveling should typically happen. We've got goals that I should be conveying to my party, and then transitions between the different acts. So I've got acts 1, 2, 3, and 4 kind of laid out from the book itself. We've got 10 towns in Icewind Dale for Act 1, and then some leveling from the book. We have Act 2, which is dealing with the Durgar and Zardock Sunblight, and then we've got Act 3, which is Arl and the Everlasting Rime and Yithrin. Act 4. These kind of Act 3 and 4 can kind of be melded together, but that's what that is. And then as I go through and prep for each chapter, we get a quick glance, and we'll go over this in more detail as we prep for our first actual session. But I've got places where I've changed for the book, goals, quests, a whole bunch of stuff, NPCs, links. This is tons of stuff. Magic items so that I can print out those cards, and then what transition I need to get into the next chapter. So we'll talk about this more as we get into our next session prep. Let's go back to our main page here, and then I've got source material, I've got pronunciation guides, travel speeds, monuments. This is something that Sly Flourish put together just as we're traversing. We'll talk about that more as we get into this as well. And then I'm planning on running the Suffolk Caltro as a serial killer. This is a side quest I found on Reddit, and we'll talk about that more as well. Session 0 prep. Let's dive in. So our notes. Here's what I needed to do. I've checked off a whole bunch of things. There's some things I wanted to print so that my players, because we're playing in person, I wanted to have those in front of them, but that's all here. And then the day of, I'll send a link to our D&D Beyond campaign. During the session, what I plan on discussing is just kind of a quick get to know you overview, we did this at our session 0 for our last campaign, but we've got a few players that weren't there for the session, so we'll do this again, which I switched out some of the questions. So what's your favorite video or board game? This is so I can kind of get to know them and what kinds of things they like to do, so that we can maybe tailor the adventure a little bit to them as well. So then we've got who's your favorite D&D character you've played, then are you most excited by combat, exploration, puzzles, or roleplay? And this is just again so that I can tailor the adventure to them so that make sure that they're having a good time. Then I'm going to give out our one-page campaign guide and discuss. And the PDF for this will be in the description below if you're interested in that. And then if you'd like a version where you can go and edit it, that will be provided to any of the patrons who have access to that Google Drive. Go and edit it to your heart's content. Let's pull that open real quick and take a look. Okay, so here is our campaign one-pager. We're going to go over this with all of our players in our session 0. So real quick overview of the campaign itself. The realm of Icewind Dale finds itself cloaked in perpetual darkness as the sun remains absent from the sky for the past 2 years. Isolated from the Sword Coast, the townsfolk of 10 towns and the ragged tribes must confront the harsh realities of survival in this frigid and forsaken land. A mysterious divine power has cast a powerful spell shrouding the region in an unyielding frozen night. Whispers of ominous figures weaving destructive weapon in the mountainous peaks spread like chilling winds. Meanwhile, long dormant remnants of ancient forces stir deep beneath the icy surface, awakening with unknown intentions and untold powers. So the next section talks about the truths of Icewind Dale. This is just some overview of the campaign itself, some things that stand out, make this different from some of the other adventures that can be run. And it's also things that are important for your players to know. So the sun hasn't risen for 2 years. There's twilight from 10 to 2. Otherwise, it's complete darkness. That's important to know so that they can do dark vision or will create characters with dark vision if they want. The 2-year night has cut off Icewind Dale from the rest of the Sword Coast. Normal temperatures in Icewind Dale are negative 50 degrees and can get as low as 120 degrees. Magic items are highly sought after and rarely sold, and this is different from the last campaign that we run. That's why I'm pointing that out. The Order of Oral demands sacrifices from the people of 10 towns in the Frostmaiden's name, so we're changing this. A lot of people who have run this have used the Children of Oral or some sort of cult of Oral, and we're doing the same thing. I'm just calling it the Order of Oral, so that when the players are trying to help the speakers of 10 towns, they're not like, well, it's weird you guys are making all these sacrifices to Oral, including human sacrifice. So it's a different entity that's doing that so that the players will still want to work with the speakers of the towns. Ancient powerful secrets lie under the ice and shadowy figures lurk in the mountains, hammering upon a strange black metal. So these are just a bunch of different things that they should know. And then we've got an overview of Bryn Shander. I'm not going to go over this, but you can take a look at that if you're interested. Just kind of gives a brief synopsis of the town where my players are going to start in Bryn Shander. Your characters in the world, this is something that's super important to provide to your players, I feel like. Character creation guidelines, basically, letting them know that we're going to begin at first level. We'll be using Milestone for leveling for the campaign. You can feel free to use customizing your origin feature from Tasha's, and then you can choose a race and class options from any of the official published works of Wizards of the Coast. And I don't do third-party options typically when I'm running a published adventure from Wizards of the Coast. If one of my players is adamant about it, I'll take a look at it, but honestly, this just keeps things more simple for me. And then the biggest thing here is your character has joins with your companions to help the people of 10 towns survive the frigid dangers of the endless night. This gives them a purpose for being out adventuring and working together as a team. It's also helpful for them to know that they are doing so to help the people of 10 towns, not to save the endless night or anything like that. Just this gets things going, because in the beginning chapters, you're literally just helping the people of 10 towns. So we go into it knowing that that's the case. A group patron, this is something that I picked up from Sly Flourish, and it's something that I really enjoy, and it makes starting adventures really easy, is this idea of a group patron or someone that has basically hired them or is working with them, giving them quests to start with, and then they kind of branch off and do their own thing, but it just gets them headed in the right direction and coming together as a team. So the first one I've not picked is Sheriff Markham Southwell. We saw a picture of him earlier, who is the sheriff of Bryn Shander. The next one is Hlyn Trollbane, who's the retired bounty hunter who is basically searching for the serial killer, and then Danica Greysteel, who's a scholar who is trying to figure out what is going on here with the strange magic casting the long night upon Icewind Dale. So I'll have my party pick one of these in session 0, and then this person will be the one giving them their initial quests and kind of answering any questions that they may have to start. And then from there they can build relationships with other NPCs, but it gives us a place to start. Safety tools. Super important in a session 0 to go over this. So here are a bunch of themes of this campaign. There's darkness, cold, murder, isolation, sacrifice, including human and humanoid, and paranoia, Please let me know if any of these bother you. So this is a place, safe spot. Here's some things that are kind of iffy in this campaign. Lines, these are things that will not be happening at all. Physical violence towards children, unwanted sexual contact, animal abuse or cruelty, party-initiated torture or inter-party violence, or inter-party betrayal. So you're not stealing. The rogue isn't stealing from his companions. I just don't put up with that. It's not fun for me. It's not fun for most of the players I played with, so we just don't do it. Veils, these are the kind of things that happen off screen. So there's cannibalism, mental assault, ritual sacrifice, kidnapping, consensual sex, and enemy-initiated torture will be off screen. If at any time you don't feel comfortable with the content or the direction of the game, say pause for a second and we'll stop, and out of character we'll talk about what's going on. And I will also mention that you can do this in a DM to me or contact me outside of the game as well. So all super important. Just gonna hand these out to my players. I've actually already handed it out to them so that they can kind of get an idea and get some ideas going for what types of characters that they want to build. And we've gone over the campaign guide. There's just some more points that I kind of want to hit home, and I'll go over these with my players. Just the cold weather, the sun, making sure they're good with the safety tools, general rules for my game, let them know how I feel about language. I'm pretty much okay with everything, just don't be a jerk. Game rules, here are some things that I want to go over. When we level this time, I want to take turns rolling our hit dice. So I think in the past they've just rolled them themselves or they've taken the average. So what we're going to do this time, and I've got this from the Glass Cannon podcast, which is absolutely fantastic if you're interested in good storytelling. They play Pathfinder first edition, but it's still really entertaining for me. So what they do is player rolls a die, your hit die, and I'll roll the hit die, and you take the higher of the two. So you have a pretty good chance of getting something fun. And we'll do that in front of everybody each time we level up. One thing that has been common is bonus action to take the potion yourself and an action to use the potion on someone else. So we've used that in our last campaigns. It worked out really well. One thing I'm thinking about, and I'll talk with my players about this, is instead of flanking giving you advantage, it gives a +2 to hit. One thing I for sure want to change is how we do critical hits in this campaign. So in the past, we have just rolled twice the dice and add your modifier, but that ends up being not always super awesome because you can roll a 1 or something, roll really low, and it's almost less this time than it would be on a regular hit. We'll talk about changing that. A couple of options that I've seen that I kind of like is taking the max damage from the dice and then rolling an added die in your modifier. So if you're rolling a D8 for your damage, you get 8 plus whatever you roll on the die and the modifier. And then the other is exploding dice, which basically means that if you roll a D8 and you roll an 8 on it, you get to roll again. If you roll another 8, you just keep going until you roll something besides the max on that. So I'll also talk with my players and see if there's other options that they want, and I will remind them that if they do it, so do the monsters. So think about that as well. Another thing I'll be changing during this campaign is I'll be handing out inspiration tokens to everyone at the beginning of each session so that they can use inspiration once per turn. It's something that I really like, but I'm really bad at remembering to do. So I have just printed these little coins and painted them, 3D printed and painted these little coins. I'm just going to hand them out to my players at the beginning of a session. They each get one, and you can use your inspiration, reroll a d20 whenever you feel it is appropriate. And hopefully as these little physical reminders, people will remember to use it. And we'll see. I got these from Loot Studios. I'll provide a link for this in the description below as well if you're interested in that. Just something fun to add to our game. A big one for me is I don't know all the rules, and I don't expect everyone to know them either. So if there's something in question, we'll probably make a quick judgment call if we can't find it in a quick Google search, and then just move on and find out later, and I will communicate the result of our search, and we will use that going forward. So this is something I've used pretty regularly in my campaigns. Just here's what I think. Will you do this for now? I'll look it up later, and I'll let you know the results. Another thing that's important to communicate to my players is I don't like the feel of the DM versus the players when we're running games. I'm rooting for them to win. They are the heroes of the story. But on the other side of that, the enemies are doing their best to do things that are advantageous to them, and they will challenge the players. It's not me against you, it's me trying to challenge you and have a good time and having to think outside the box a little bit. I have also recently found the blog, the Monsters Know What They're Doing, and I have really enjoyed that because in combat I feel like I'm not the best and most tactical, so I will be using the Monsters Know What They're Doing going forward, which will make things a lot more challenging for my players. As a result of that, player death is a thing that can happen. I'm not going out of my way to make it happen, but it is a thing that can happen. So just be prepared that that may happen to your character. The next thing I'm going to do is hand out a 10 Towns overview, and this is something that I found on Reddit. I'll provide a link for this in the description below as well, but it's just something that if your players live in the 10 towns, this is the things that they would know. So it's just a quick overview of each of the 10 towns, the geography, the people, and some important locations there. So that'll be in the description below as well. The next thing we're going to do after we've talked about all of that is finally build our characters. So I will have them roll for secrets for your backstory. I provided a sample of these already for my players so they can be thinking about them. Like like I mentioned earlier, I'm planning on leaning into backstory, so I need something to be able to grab onto and hook my players. So I've got a list of a whole bunch of character secrets that I have generated. I'll just have them roll a D100, and they can pick one, or if they've got one in mind already, we'll use that as well. But these are just kind of get their juices, creative juices flowing. That'll be step 1 for character creation. Step 2 is to go ahead and go through D&D Beyond and create your characters. It's just the easiest, especially for newer players. Use the D&D Beyond creator. I know that there are other tools out there. I haven't looked into them too much yet, so we'll be using D&D Beyond for now. And there's some custom backgrounds. I'll be handing those out as well. I have a couple of them printed just in case someone wants to use a background that's tied specifically to Icewind Dale. Talked about a bunch of this stuff already. For rolling stats, you can either roll, but you have to do it in front of the table, and you roll 4d6, drop the lowest, rinse and repeat, or you can use standard array or point buy for your stats, and D&D Beyond is set up to do all of that. Starting equipment, nothing super exciting here other than you can pick a trinket and you get a free set of cold weather clothing because you live in Icewind Dale and it is very chilly. Next, we're gonna spend some time thinking about tying the characters together and kind of rounding out the character a little bit. We're not gonna spend a entire build your backstory here, but what brought you to Icewind Dale? Were you born here? Were you leaving for some reason? Is one of your secrets the reason that you're here in Icewind Dale? What relationship do you have with the other characters? Are you related to any of them? Have you had past experiences with any of them? I think that's kind of fun. And then what circumstances brought you all together? And we can kind of brainstorm this all together. And that also will depend on maybe on their patron that they choose. Another thing that I ask my players to do is to find an avatar and to send it to me before session so that I can have that. And I typically, in the last campaign, I printed out a little paper token. This time I think I'm going to try and 3D print everything because I've got one of those now and it's a lot of fun. I'm going to encourage them to maybe use Hero Forge. I've got a bunch of STL files myself so I can have them root through those and see if they like any of those, and I'll print and paint it as soon as I can for them. Can't guarantee it'll be in the next session or whatever, but I want to be able to do that for all my players. It's something that's fun. So for example, here's our Hero Forge minis that we used last time. Here's Jimmy and here's Dimitri, and I'm going to give these to my players. I forgot to give it to them at the end of our campaign last time, but I just typically give it to my players when we're done. And then lastly, after we've kind of rounded out our characters, there's 2 other things that I want to know. Number 1 is what type of loot are you hoping your character finds? Are we looking for wands, armor, just random things, stat boosting type things? Let me know that so that I can tailor the treasure to you and your character. And then why is your character out adventuring? Is it tied to your secret or your background? And finally, if we have time, we're going to have a quick little adventure of sorts. It's really just an encounter. As evening hits, the party is heading up to meet with their patron, whoever that might be, and they're just outside the Northlook Tavern. Party spots an ice mephit or 2. We'll see how they handle it. Basically, the ice mephit is one of the spies for Oral, who is reporting back on the goings-on in Bryn Shander, and my party will face off with them. And just it's kind of fun because you just roll up this character you're excited to play. If we have time, we'll run this out and you can run through a quick combat and see how things go. So I've got the stat block here just for that encounter and maybe 2. And then from the monsters know what they're doing. We talked about this already, but I've got how the mephit will act, a couple of important things for me to remember. And then once it dies, I'm going to have them see a fog cloud off in the distance as another ice mephit uses that as a distraction to get away and report back what they have found to Oral. That's pretty much it for our session 0 notes. I'm really excited to dig into this. I had a ton of fun in the last campaign with my players, and I'm excited to see where this one goes. If you have run this, let me know if you have any tips in the comment section below. I'd also be interested to know of any other methods you guys have used for rolling your critical hits. When you roll that natural 20, it's a lot of fun. Thank you guys so much for watching. I do appreciate it. Huge shout out to my patrons. We'll catch you all in the next one.